What's up, Jay?
What's up, Christopher? Hi,
Hey,
Craig.
hey, Craig. I'm playing as your brother in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
He's doing a great job every Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to midnight
Yeah,
on
make sure.
twitch.tv/Grumpy Dungeon Masters.
Yep. So if you're already playing it and don't have to worry about spoilers, come join us because honestly, we're going kind of slow, taking our time and just being general asshole murder hobos.
We are just murder hobos. Well, we're not even evil murder hobos. We're murder hobos with vindication and reason.
Yes. Yeah.
Though, I mean, I'm going to play through the game in my current. Whenever I play games, I always like playing like my id. That's what like Thaladred is. He's kind of like my id is
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
on a lot of LARP characters are like that, where they're just
Yep.
the person's id just laid bare. You can tell what kind of person somebody really is that way. Um, and that's what I tend to do. I tend to play like a superhero version of myself sometimes in role playing games, and who doesn't?
Yep.
And I generally like, kind of fall in that line of like, I'm going to help you. I don't necessarily need payment or anything. It's just as long as things are better after I left it. And again, it's another very LARP heavy thing that the previous ownership used to really, push is, when you come up here to play, leave the site in a better state than when you found it. And
Sure.
that's a good life lesson to have and
In
methodology to have in anything really.
in general, you would like to leave the world better
Right.
than it was when you came into it.
And so when I play games, I generally fall into that category. Even when I play D&D games, I like playing my Thaladred character and just being this hard ass soldier killing things and just want for naught, no goal, just the glory of battle. But in this one, in Baldur's Gate 3, I find that the game is written very well, so I can actually just play it. Don't really take any reward. Been forced to take rewards to finish quest lines, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, they just give you stuff.
Like, no, I'm fine. I got thousands upon thousands of gold. I got more magic items I can shake a stick at. I don't need your +1 sword.
No, you must take +1 sword. Take
It's been
it.
in my family for generations, and now you can use it to slay a dragon. Great. Dust.
Yep. All right. Hey, vendor, would you give me 52 gold for this? I'll take 52 gold.
I got to a point now where I'm not even asking for gold. I'm just
You're
giving it to
just
the
giving it
vendor.
to them. Yeah.
Like, get this out of my inventory.
Oh, not me. Because it gives you can barter for things, and I will if they don't have enough money. But I get every cent. If my total comes out to 376 gold, by God, I'm getting exactly the amount supposed to get.
Yeah, I do find that that works very well in a video game setting. But speaking of, like, Baldur's Gate 3 has been this massive success. It's a
Oh yeah,
D&D video game.
backing up
Um,
real quick to interject, because I first talked about Baldur's Gate a couple of weeks ago when it first dropped, because I was the only one playing it, and I told you 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Yeah, I said it
yeah,
wasn't absolutely perfect, but it's one of the best games, definitely best game I played all year.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's
Are you in agreement?
probably the best role-playing game of all time.
Well, okay, I don't go that
It's
far, but
it's
it's up there.
for me, it's in contention with Chrono Trigger and Fallout New Vegas. It's in that coveted top 3 spot for me.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a top fiver for me, I think.
like, we were talking about this on our show on Mondays, playing 7 Days to Die, and it's hard to really, because lot of things out there are personal taste, but when it comes to playing a video game form of D&D, this is pretty much as best you're gonna get. Um,
Yeah.
and there's actually that's what my topic was gonna be tonight, was like they had to change some fundamentals from D&D, for it to work in a video game setting. But
Mm,
a lot of these changes that they made, a lot of people are like, I'm gonna start doing that in my board game now. I'm just gonna home rule that as what the rule is from now on. And I have a couple examples.
yeah, let's
Um,
go over some of the examples because you go
so
yeah, go
a
ahead.
lot of people really like the fact that you can jump and shove as a bonus action. and they're allowing people to start doing that at the tables. I'm not of that impression because I think that the shoving someone to the ground is
It's an attack action.
it's an attack action. It's a bonus action if you have the Shield Master feat,
Yeah.
which that's kind of where I mean, I always played that. I always play a character with the Shield Master feat, so I've been doing this a lot. I know how powerful that is, and it's just going to up the power level of a lot of your
In
games.
in Baldur's Gate 3, it doesn't matter as much because being prone does not really I mean, I guess it does give you advantage on attacks, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I just don't feel like it matters as much being prone. Other
Well,
eh, for
it's more the standing up from pump prone, taking away the half your
y-
movement speed.
yeah,
That's the biggie.
yeah. Well,
But I mean,
it seems to take away your action in Baldur's Gate 3. Like if
so
I'm not
if it's
if I get knocked prone, a lot of times I don't have a turn.
so, and that's the other one people are starting to use now too. So on your turn in the game, if you get knocked prone by like an environmental hazard or a trap, or as someone knocking you over as a reaction or something like that, your turn is over.
Yeah.
And I understand the logic behind that. As a large man myself, falling over, I'm out. Okay. I'm not going to stand right back up and continue my attacks. I'm going to need a couple seconds to catch my breath, stand up.
You need that full 6 seconds.
I need that full 6 seconds. So that's another tactic people are kind of bringing over as well too.
I am
Um,
not a fan of that one. I don't like that one.
the thieves tools and disarm toolkits. Essentially, people have been lowering the price of thieves tools and trap disarm kits, basically adding those both to D&D. I know thieves tools already exist. There's 50 gold, you have them forever. So they're making them like 50 silver, okay? And saying you can attempt your stealth check, or sorry, your sleight of hand check to basically pick the lock, but it's going to cost you just a thieves tools. It's like the bobby pin from like the Fallout or Elder
Yeah, yeah.
Scrolls universe. They've been kind of pulling a little bit over that. I've seen a couple variations of that,
See,
and it's
that's great in video games. That's a terrible concept for an RPG.
but for me, like I sit there a lot sometimes, and like someone will try to pick a lock, okay, and they'll fail, and they're like, okay, well I'll try to pick it again, and they'll just sit there and pick it until I let them succeed.
Yeah,
Or I tell them, no, you can't pick it again. You have to wait an hour. Um, that failure took everything out of you. You tried everything you could think of.
yeah.
And my father was a locksmith. Okay. I don't have a lot of experience with lock picking, but I have a lot of knowledge of lock picking. Okay. I'm just making that known. I haven't picked a lock myself, but I know the concepts behind it all. Because just being around a father, you just get that
Yeah, yeah.
knowledge of it. And unless like you jam a lockpick in there and like twist it around and snap it in half, it's really hard to fuck up a lock to the point you can't try lockpicking it again immediately. So I understand there's this weird thing of like, okay, you tried to pick the lock and you failed. Now as a DM, what do? Do I up the DC a little bit because it's,
That's
too
probably the
hard for
best way.
them?
It's probably the better way of doing it.
But that doesn't make any sense because the lock's not getting any harder. The lock's not learning it unless it's like a sentient lock.
It's not a matter of the lock getting more difficult. It's that they've tried everything that they know how to do, and now they're having to try shit they don't know how to do.
Which I can understand that, but that doesn't always apply for everything.
Well, we're
Like,
talking specifically for locks. Like,
yeah. So like you could up it, but eventually you're gonna up it to a point where you can't do it. Like let's say you go up by one every single time, then you're just basically they're sitting there, you're waiting for one person to roll the table until they get to
nat
like
20.
30
Yeah,
DC,
yeah, yeah.
and or nat 20. Um and if you just set the DC to 18 and let them keep trying to like get the 18, then what's the point of having to lock in the first place?
It in general, if there is no threat, then I will just if there's no threat and there's no chance of an upcoming threat time wise, then I will
Mhm.
generally just allow them to pick the lock. I don't
Yeah,
care if it's a DC 30 or whatever. I'll have a DC in my own head, and if they smash that DC, I'll say they pick it very quickly. If they barely beat it, I'll say it's a very difficult lock, but you get through it. It takes a few minutes.
yeah.
Like I give them that little bit of how long it took, but it doesn't really affect the gameplay at all.
So like I've always kind of wondered what thieves' tools were in D&D. Um, I think there's a picture of them in the player's handbook.
There have been pictures over the years of them. I don't know if there's
Yeah,
currently one for 5e or not.
but like I assume you have a turning tool and you have like a little pick tool that
Yeah, we've all seen the
Yeah,
movies and
yeah.
stuff. Like,
You've seen the movies, so like I'm assuming like it's still the same tumbler system that everything else have, and maybe the tools aren't as well machined and the knowledge isn't well known out there for that. So like yeah, you'll fuck up, but breaking the tools doesn't kind of make sense because you're not really going to break them. That's why it works in Fallout and like Elder Scroll because you're doing with like bobby pins you found on the ground.
yeah,
you know that bobby pin's going to bust. But those people are trying that one, so that's cool and interesting. I'd like to see you know
I'm not a fan of
some
that one.
actual
I'm not a fan of that one simply because that requires your character to literally just be carrying around 50 of those things on him. And what
yeah
that also is as pointless as say, just letting them try the lock 50 times until they get that nat 20.
yeah.
Neither of
But
those are good ways of doing
at
it.
least then it's costing money. You know.
Yeah, I mean if they're lowering the cost to, like you said, 50 silver or whatever, or 5 silver or whatever the hell it was, like that, it has to be a cost that matters.
Yeah.
But you can't make it too high of a cost because then at level 1 you just don't have the money for it.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Um.
not a fan. Don't like it.
So verbal, somatic, and material components are ignored in the video game for obvious
Sure.
reasons. That's
Yeah.
just too much. So being silenced prevents all spell casting.
Yep.
So some people like I very rarely have gotten to the point where verbal, somatic, and material components have mattered. Um, I try to in my home the live game on D&D for it to matter somewhat, especially like if it has like a 300 gold diamond cost. That's definitely a thing
Yeah.
that matters.
If there's a
Um,
money cost, I require it.
Yeah, but a lot of the spells, that need like you just need your arcane focus to replace the material component. Um,
I don't even care. I don't even use foci in the game.
yeah.
I do not care if you've got one.
So I mean, like having that stuff about the material components is just always felt too easy for me. I like the idea of spellcasters grabbing materials and making a spell happen. I like the verbal and somatic, chanting of it, especially in the video game with the bard's like playing his lute to cast a spell.
Yeah.
You know, that's cool and like it. But I understand why it wasn't in the game. But I can honestly see why people have just like stopped using verbal somatic material components unless there's a gold cost
Um,
involved.
so material components, honestly, all of it, it is a holdover from first edition D&D.
Yeah.
Like material components, it used to be very common for this, oh, a wizard has found this brand new spell or they figured out this new spell and I need these components. Let's go actually play an adventure to go
hmm
get the 6 pounds of bat guano that I'm going to need to cast fireball the next 30 times. Like
Yeah.
that was, you couldn't just go buy that stuff anywhere. You had to go out and actually obtain it. And that was how many of the early D&D adventures were made. All of
Yeah.
that being said, that's gone by the wayside. Times have changed, so nobody utilizes it.
So
Verbal and
I
some
can
verbal and
I so
somatic. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I can see why silencing a character, you know, this is more for the like you're in a bubble where you can't say the somatic components of it anymore because there's
Yeah.
no sound.
Well, silence
Um,
has changed over the years too.
yeah.
Silent. So there were two silence spells. There were silence and then silence 10-foot radius. Silence, you targeted a person with it.
Yeah.
And like if you succeeded getting that wizard silenced, man, they're just screwed. The silence
Yeah.
10-foot radius, you could at least step out of that.
Yeah, that's the way it is in the game. But people are just doing that now, where
Yeah.
the silence just stops all spells regardless, because it's just easier. It's more intuitive.
And in general, it will. Like
Yeah.
nearly every spell in that book requires some sort of a verbal component.
Yep. So other things that I've seen people take from the game, um, we talked about the shove and the jumping as bonus actions.
Yeah,
Now that this game has consuming potions as a bonus action, people are just going with that as potions or bonus actions from now on.
I've been doing that since the beginning of 5e.
Right. I'd still say it's an action. Um, Also, the other thing was too is that people now let people cast leveled spells if one's an action and one's a bonus action. I don't like that at all in the game or on the table. I still think you need to only be able to cast one leveled spell a turn.
Yeah, I
That's just me.
yeah, I come from third edition. I mean, I come from second, but third edition, you could do that if you had the quickened action feat or quickened spell casting. You could do that anyway. It didn't matter as far as the levels. I hate 5e not being able to cast two level spells. Fucking detest it. Uh, I don't, I do stick with that rule when I'm running 5e, but I am personally not a fan of that rule. So the fact that I'm able to cast two leveled spells in this is, I'm good with it. Uh, I never think it's game breaking in 5e simply because those leveled spells, one of them is usually some awesome spell, and the other one is almost shit like Misty Step.
Yeah,
Like just something simple, something that doesn't really affect much other than getting out of the way and burning a spell slot in the process.
I think it makes healers too powerful to be able to cast a healing spell and a leveled spell at the same time.
I mean, oh, okay, I cast Cure Wounds and Healing Word. Awesome.
Well, it's not just like it's not just healing word and cure wounds. It's more healing word and spirit guardians. It.
Okay, I mean, all right, I cast Flame Strike and Healing Word.
I
It,
think it's too much.
the spells are so minor that it doesn't affect much.
Yeah, but in the game where action economy matters, okay, I think you're giving way too much power to the players where the power already exists on their side anyways.
Well, at the same time, bad guys can do it too.
Yes, but if you do it to the players, then they stop showing up to the table because you feel like they're being mean to you.
Sounds like you got the wrong players if they care about
not
that.
not my not my Saturday players. I'm just saying in
Yeah,
general.
I know.
Like
Uh,
you do that to a new player, they're like, "What the hell?"
I mean,
Uh,
if D&D, if WotC wrote that as the rule and that's how that worked, literally nobody would think twice about it or care.
so the last thing that this is something I've been thinking about. Um, I would never actually make it at my table, but I like the thought of it better. Being prone gives disadvantage on stealth and dexterity saving throws, and
Oh,
attacks against
you mean
prone creatures.
you mean strength and dex.
That's what I said,
You
right?
said stealth.
Yeah, strength and dexterity saving throws, and attacks against a prone creature have advantage at the 10 feet rather than 5 feet.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
I don't mind that. That if that was what the way the rule was, I wouldn't be bothered by it. I always felt it weird that someone on prone could swing their sword too and
Well,
not have any
yeah.
disadvantage on hitting somebody. Like I guess if I'm sitting on my ass, which I've done a lot to LARP, I can hit people fine. But if I've been knocked prone, I'm not swinging a sword. Like again,
Well,
for me, it's gonna take me a while to stand back up. But
yeah, but not everybody is your size. If I get knocked prone, it takes me a second at most to get back up. So,
bloop.
yeah.
um,
I understand you still should
yeah,
have. I would still say the disadvantage is it's fine because if I'm knocked down, if I'm sitting on my ass, I am at a disadvantage when fighting.
yeah, but that's not the way it is. There are a lot of other like minor changes. Like if you go to the website bg3.wiki, they have one page that just lists all the changes from like the core rules, and there are quite a bit, and a lot of them are just basically like changes because it had to be that way because it's a video game. But there are some things like life domain clerics can get good berries.
Yeah, that's
Great
weird.
weapon fighting style um, is different. in between the two games.
Yeah, and
And
there's
just a couple other
there are a
race
number of
changes and
there are a
stuff.
number of spells that are until long rest, which is not
Yeah,
like they aren't normally that. I recall being one of the things.
it's the way it was in 4E. Daily spells.
Yep. Well, hey, they're going back to 4E apparently with a lot of this stuff. They're just not titling it the same way. It's until long rest, not daily spells.
I do like the
If you
fact
go ahead.
I do like the 2 short rests, 1 long rest. Like that there's always been players that are like, "Oh, well, we're all elves, so we're gonna take a short rest, long rest, short rest, short rest, long rest, short rest in one day." No,
Yep.
no, you're not gonna do that. I hate you for suggesting that.
Yeah. Long rest to me, you get one a day. Period. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Long rest is a once a day thing. The short rest, I will allow as many of those as my players want to take, so long as they can get to a place that's safe enough to do it.
I do like I am playing an elf in the game, a half elf, I guess, and,
Everybody is. Can you find before you go on? Can you find that article or whatever it was of what people are playing in Baldur's Gate? Because I would be really. We talked about it briefly off air, but I would like to go over that in the podcast because
okay,
it was kind of fascinating that everybody was playing fucking half elves and then everybody was playing paladins.
give me a second here, I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
find it.
yeah.
Da, da, da.
Yeah, it was just sort of like an odd, definitely not what I would have expected. I would have figured elves would be the number one thing that everybody was playing. So I guess half elves kind of makes sense. Paladins, in my estimation, I never would have thought they'd be even like a top five class that people would be playing. But apparently, that's just what they wanted to do. I mean, I know paladins are very, very, very powerful, but there's a lot of powerful classes you could pick from, and they're not the most fun thing to play. You run in, you smite. You run in, you smite. It's like playing a fucking warlock. It's just Eldritch
Well,
Blast over and over.
so Elder's Blast in this game is so I've been having this problem a lot in Adventures League. I have a lot of players that are DMs, so they know pretty much how to min max a character so that it's really, really, really good.
Hmm.
And they all do psionic and force damage. Now I'm not. I know
Yeah,
I as a DM I can fix things. Okay, and I could fix this problem by making things force resistant or psychic resistant or immune to
sure. Yeah,
psychic
yeah.
damage. I don't want to. Um,
In Adventures League, just stick with what they got.
right. But I had the same problem with Elder's Blast in this one. Yeah, it's boring just to hit Elder's Blast over and over and over again, but nothing resists force.
Yeah,
There's objects
very
that you
few
need to
things.
blow up, and force does that perfectly. So,
Yep. Yeah, I had been using the wizard for a long time, and I had recently like the NPC wizard that you get, and I got a robe that worked really well with the warlock, so I swapped over to the warlock, and it's just the consistency of it. It's just here
hmm
you're taking 25 to 30 damage every round like fucking clockwork from this guy.
yeah, and that's when I have a team of killers. That's what I need. I need consistency.
Yeah. Well, sure, the wizard might sure he can cast slow and occasionally fireball large groups of things, but the warlock can do that on occasions too.
Yeah, and everything's a short rest.
Yeah, well, I haven't even thought about that part, but it's
Yeah, I mean,
just
my
yeah,
team is
I
built
know.
around short rests, so it just makes it too easy. I can't find the article, unfortunately.
That sucks.
It was a couple weeks ago, and it's just buried
Yeah,
someplace.
yeah, because you found it like a few days after Baldur's Gate came out, so it was just kind of interesting the fact, like I said, half elves were number one most played race, and paladin was number one most played class, which are kind of neat
Mhm.
but unexpected,
Yep.
at least in
So,
my estimation.
so speaking of people messing games up, a couple weeks back, my wife was playing. the game with us on Saturdays, and she's been basically just transitioning her bard into like a ranged character. She's a drow, so she has the whole like weapon hand crossbow combo that drows traditionally have.
Hmm.
That they kind of lost now as a specialty of theirs. But either or, so she's basically been shooting there, and she's been shooting and shooting and shooting. Like we were going through this massive long slog through this little haunted mansion, and I asked her, "It's like you've been going through a ton of arrows. Do you have any left?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" Of course
I'm supposed to record those?
she's like, "I don't need them." I was like, "What do you mean you don't need them?" She's like, I have the feat that makes it so I don't need arrows." And I
What
was like,
feat is that?
"What feat is it that you have that you don't need arrows?" And she's like, it's the crossbow expert." And I was like, "What?"
Don't think
And she's
that's
like,
how that
"Yeah,
works.
she's like, "Yeah, it just makes the arrows, right?"
Oh boy.
I was like, "No,
Uh,
sweetie, you
okay,
still
hang on.
need
Hang
arrows."
on. Let me pull this up. Okay, crossbow expert. You ignore the loading quality of crossbows with which you are proficient. Being within 5 feet of a hostile creature does not impose disadvantage on your ranged attack rolls. And when you use the attack action and attack with a one-handed weapon, you can use a bonus action to attack with a hand crossbow you are holding. Yep, don't see anything about not needing bolts in there.
So she thought that the whole you ignore the loading property of crossbows meant that it's just firing out magic crossbow bolts.
Yeah, it's not how that works. There's things like the quiver of Ilona, which lets you ignore stuff like that. But
Which I'll
definitely,
probably give her that just because
yeah,
look what you found. Isn't that nice?
yeah, or give her a magical hand crossbow that just makes arrows. There's ways around it, but in general, nope. You must have the bolts.
She was very embarrassed, but it was quite
Yeah.
funny. But I mean, like that goes to show you too. Like players can read something and just interpret it
Oh yeah,
completely different, no
I
matter
do it.
how smart they
I
are.
do it all the
You know.
fucking time. As a DM, I'll read something and interpret it completely different from how my players do. And most of the time, they're the right ones.
So the last thing I want to talk about, and this is the last bit about Baldur's Gate 3, as well. This will lead to a story that of me playing D&D a while ago. So I had mentioned to you that I had found gauntlets that basically give me an 18 dexterity.
Hmm.
And I told you that I was going to go respec and make dexterity the dump stat on my bard so I could put those points elsewhere.
Yeah,
And you were like, "That's dumb. You shouldn't be able to do that. You should just get it and let it lie as it is."
that's
And
not what I said. That's
and,
not
and
what I
that
said at all. My response was, "Well, it's a video game, so it's fine."
and I was like, "Yeah, well, the DM's going to let me do it, so I'm going to do it."
Yeah,
And
it.
it is dumb. It is very cheap. But I did it once though in a game. Okay, so we were playing through the Strahd's Cursed House, and it was kind of like the one-shot variant of it. And we were allowed to make level 5 characters and have one rare magic item for our choice. So I can't remember what specifically it was. I think it was the belt of ogre strength
Oh, the
or
gaunt.
giant.
I think they're gauntlets of ogre
No,
strength.
I had the one above that. Yeah, it was the belt of giant strength.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so
I guess
that
the hill giant one is probably just a rare.
yeah, so the belt of hill giant strength is just a rare, and it gives me 21 strength.
Yep.
So what I did is we were doing point buy, so I made strength on my fighter the dump stat. Okay,
Yep.
and I put on the belt and I had a 21 strength. And I was like, this is exactly where I wanted to be. So I got to put all the other points into like, some dex and con and make sure I didn't have any negatives. And it made my fighter pretty much unstoppable because I didn't have any wisdom weaknesses. Um, Charisma is really not really a concern because there's so few spells at 5 that really will hit you that are charisma based. And if they do hit you, well, you're gone anyways. Um, so we were playing through that and we're just fighting our way through the house and all this spooky stuff is happening, and there's ghosts, and there's weird walls, and there's helmed horrors and shit. And eventually, we get to a point where we're kind of working through the basement of the house, and we fight a bunch of shadows. Okay,
Yeah.
and for everyone who doesn't know, the shadow, the monster in fifth edition, when it hits you, it hits you with an attack called Strength Drain. +4 to hit, reach 5 feet, does 2d6 plus 2 necrotic damage, and the target's strength score is reduced by 1d4. The target dies if this strength is reduced to 0, otherwise, the reduction lasts until the target finishes a short or long rest. Okay? So,
Yep.
nothing too serious, but I'm the frontline fighter fighting 3 shadows. Okay?
All right.
Now, as a DM, you are hitting my character that has got the belt of Hill Giant Strength. So my
Yeah.
strength score is 21.
Yep.
Nothing can modify it. It just is 21. When the shadow hits me, okay, what happens to my strength?
I'm reading the Belt of Giant Strength right now, so I'm gonna read the exact wording
Hmm.
because I see where you were going with this thought process. So while wearing this belt, your strength score changes to a score granted by the belt. If your strength is already equal to or greater than the belt's score, the item has no effect on you. And then there's 6 varieties of this exist, corresponding with the rarities, etc. And then the shadow, the exact wording of strength drain, uh, blah blah blah. It goes through the melee attack, hits, necrotic damage, and the target's strength score is reduced by 1d4. So your thoughts on it are the Belt of Giant Strength just sets your score to 21 and it does not change, or that it cannot be changed. Whereas the Shadow says that it changes it by 1d4. I don't see anything on the Belt of Giant Strength saying that it can't change, though. It says while wearing this belt, your strength score changes to a score granted by the belt. Uh, and then it would be reduced by a d4 if hit by the shadow.
So
It's
I
it's
so I
not
didn't.
clear. It is not
Yeah.
clear, and it really would be a DM discretion. And we're gonna have that conversation about what I'm gonna talk about later too.
So I just basically said to the DM that was DMing it all. I was like, you choose. Like it was also like kind of like I was helping him learn the games. Like you choose. This is not a rule they thought of or a situation they
Yeah,
thought of when they made this game.
it's so vague and unlikely that, yeah, who would think of that?
Like I can see your score gets set to 21 and it doesn't change. It's always 21 until you take that belt off. You know.
Yeah,
Heaven forbid you take that belt off when you have minus 12 strength on you because you're just gonna die. Um, what he did was kind of like the middle ground between the two. He said, "My score is 21. It won't change. However, your physical body strength is still 8. So if these shadows hit you and reduce you by 8 strength, you're dead."
yeah,
Okay, whatever. I was fine with it. I think I came close, but it was neither here nor there. But I love these items that are all over D&D that just like set your score to something.
yeah.
Like
There's
I
one
see it a lot.
for pretty much every. I don't know if
Yeah,
I think they only have 3 of them now, but there used to be one for every stat.
yeah. I really don't like them. Even though now my favorite canonical D&D character is in Baldur's Gate 3 and
Which
uses one
has,
of these
yeah,
items.
yeah,
Um, Even though that exists, it's pretty smart that way. And like I've seen it done a few times too, like kobolds with the gauntlets of overstrength or whatever it is, the ones set at 18. Being a powerhouse because they have that huge strength. It's in Fandelver. There's a an undead dwarf or something like that that has the magic gauntlets on them, and just that one zombie hits you for a truckload.
yeah.
Um, and
And
like
then after you kill him, you get them.
right, yeah. So I mean, like it's an interesting item, but I would hate being a fighter and like looting that thing, and then like, oh, here you go, wizard. My life of working out in the gym, you putting on that gauntlet. Hooray.
Yep.
Or if I'm a wizard, I spent centuries studying books and reading, and you wear that stupid headband and you're as smart as me. like the Three Stooges joke where he's like, "The square root of a hypotenuse is whatever."
Yep. Of which
Like,
only me and you have ever seen that.
so like right now, my character in Baldur's Gate 3 is wearing a headband of intellect and the gauntlets of dexterity. I know there's gauntlets of strength in the game as well too. Like, what am I gonna do with those? You know, I can't wear two at the same time,
You
but
give them to your rogue.
yeah, and like they definitely break the video game because you can just go respec your guy and make him better.
Yeah,
And
which I have refused to do on at least my primary first playthrough. Not because of any ill-gotten reason. It's just it never occurred to me to do it until I was well into this, until you mentioned it, and I was almost to the end of the second act. Uh, like it's a video game, so I don't care about stuff like that in general. But
yeah,
now that I'm that far along and I'm doing just fine without it, I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. I have yet to respec any characters. I'm just sticking with what I got, and it's working fine.
I respect the warlock from the Hexblade to um the Pact of the Tome variant.
Yeah,
Just so I could have another caster that wasn't Gale.
I didn't respec him. I just leveled him up, and when I
Yeah.
like
I leveled
I
them up first as Hexblade. I was like, you know what? No. And I
okay.
re-leveled them.
Yeah, I
So
started him as Pact of the Tome because it's where all the spells are at, and I like spells.
I left him as the infernal variant. Um I didn't change that because it's storyline. It feels the right way, but
Yeah, yeah.
and the character definitely needs to be a hexblade. I mean, the magic card shows him as a hexblade. He keeps
Fucking
calling
jeez.
himself the sword of the frontier, and I'm like, dude, you have a staff and a robe on. Shut up.
Yep. Yeah. I gave him a staff and a robe when I added him to the party.
I'm
Uh,
the blade of the front.
no,
Oh,
no, no, no. You're the backline guy. That's where you're at. Get your ass
I
in the
love
rear.
getting my hands dirty. Oh, I gotta read a scroll.
So to talk about another sort of thing that it's a DM discretion is really what it seems to be. So I'm going to talk about Pathfinder. And I think I've mentioned on here the spell Aqueous Orb before because when I first read about it, I was like, this is amazing and I love this spell. So I was running Pathfinder this weekend and we have a character playing a witch, a warlock, whatever. They're technically in Pathfinder, they're a witch, but it's like a warlock type character. So they cast Aqueous Orb. And I'm going to read the exact description of this spell. So there's a lot to it. It is a sphere of water 10 feet in diameter that forms in an unoccupied space in range, either on the ground or on the surface of a liquid. When you cast the spell, and each time you sustain the spell, sustaining it is concentration, but it requires an action in Pathfinder. You sustain the spell, you can move the orb, moving it up to 10 feet along the ground or the surface of a liquid. You can gain this effect multiple times in the same round by sustaining the spell multiple times. The orb can move through the spaces of any creatures or obstacles that would not stop the flow of water. It extinguishes non magical fires, etc. The orb can also collect creatures it moves through. Any large or smaller creature whose space the orb tries to move through can attempt a reflex save against your spell DC to avoid being engulfed. If a creature succeeds at the save, it can either let the orb uh, pass retaining in its space or moving out of the orb's path into a space of the creature's choice, or allow itself to be pushed in front of the orb to the end of the orb's movement. The orb can try to engulf the same creature only once per turn. The last bit, a creature that fails its save is pulled into the orb. It becomes grabbed, moves along with the orb, and must hold its breath or begin suffocating unless it can breathe in water. An engulfed medium or smaller creature and anyone trying to affect that creature follow the normal rules for aquatic battles. And I'm not even going to go into all that. That's its own thing. An engulfed large creature is usually big enough that parts of it stick out from the water and can reach out of the water. An engulfed creature can get free either by swimming with a successful DC 10 athletics check or by escaping against your spell DC. A creature that critically failed its reflex save is further stuck and must attempt to escape instead of swim. Uh, I know that's a lot that I went through there, but effectively, this is the Katamari Damacy spell. You
It is.
create this 10-foot diameter orb and you roll it into things and collect them along the way and move
What
them.
spell level is it?
It is third, I believe. Yeah, third level spell. So it can be sustained up to a minute. Now, it thinking in action economy terms, it's 2 to cast the spell initially, and then you can move it by sustaining it. So you can drop it on some people and then move it up to 10 feet to grab some more people, all in the first round you do this thing.
Hmm.
This is not going to be a spell that you're going to fight bosses with. This is for collecting mooks. This is for collecting goons and goblins and just little shit that's in the way. And when it comes to the rule issue that I ran into, so the spell says that anything that gets collected by it is grabbed. So I looked up grabbed. You're held in place by another creature, giving you the flat footed and immobilized conditions. Flat footed just means you get -2 to armor class. Immobilized, you can't use any action with the move trait. That is the first line of immobilized. So aqueous orb, to get out of it, you can either swim by making a DC 10 athletics check or escaping by beating their spell DC. Swimming requires a move action to do. So it's very counterintuitive. It's giving you the immobilized condition so you cannot move, but the way to escape it is to move. So
It's weird.
yeah, I don't think they thought of it when when they created this spell. So it really does come down to a DM's choice. Um, Initially, I thought this spell, after seeing it in action, I thought the DC 10 athletics check was just stupidly low, and it is really low. Um, like anybody who has strength is going to make that. Anybody who's proficient in athletics will make it unless they roll like a nat one. Um, but at the same time, I realize when they get collected by this thing, they have to use an action just to get out of it. You only get 3 actions in a turn. So if you collect 3 guys with this and you only spent, 1 action to sustain the spell and move it into them, well, you've just taken away 3 actions from the enemy. So with games like this where action economy is huge, that's a pretty potent little spell.
Yeah.
But your thoughts on the immobilize thing?
I don't mind them being immobilized. I don't understand flat-footed at all ever.
It's just
Not since
it gives -2 to armor class. It's that simple.
not since I was playing that one game of 3.5 where the asshole was like, "Oh, I want to just give him a little shove forward." Okay, well, he's not flat-footed and like 17 other conditions. Like, dude, I just want to push him forward. Come on, like
This game doesn't have all that much.
it
So
has flat-footed. So what is the point of flat-footed? Like,
there are 2 points to flat-footed. One, it gives them a -2 to armor class, and
okay,
2, it means that a rogue can perform sneak attack. That's it.
okay. So what me- what non-mechanically does flat-footed mean in the game? How do you become flat-footed?
Well, there are a lot of ways. That's one of them. If you're
Well,
surprised, you're flat-footed.
that doesn't
Uh,
make any sense though. That's not what flat-footed means.
oh, so you just don't like the wording? Okay.
Flat-footed means that you don't have like that little gap underneath your foot and like your whole foot touches the floor.
Oh my
So you
God,
can have
really?
any fucking shoe with arch support.
My
You can't be
brother,
flat-footed.
my brother actually has flat feet. But the term flat-footed is a thing that was around long before D&D that did not mean what you're thinking it means.
It's a medical term for a medical condition. You
Uh,
just need a shoe
so
with arch. So if I get a shoe with arch support in Pathfinder, can I be
dictionary
flat-footed?
dictionary.com, having a condition in which the foot has an arch that is lower than usual, or the informal version, clumsy, awkward, or uninspired. That is
So
the
what
actual
is that?
definition.
So you become clumsy, awkward, and uninspired in Pathfinder? Oh, look at that jackass. Oh, you
Yeah.
fell out of water sphere. Like, I don't get it.
I'm so glad I could go through all of
I
this in
hate
the
this. I
discussion.
hate flat-footed. It is the dumbest term ever. It
Is that
doesn't
like is
mean
that
anything.
does it bug you like the word moist bugs people? Is that what it
It
is?
it bugs me because all you need is a boot with arch support, and you can't become flat-footed anymore.
Once again, it has two definitions.
Clumsy, it means clumsy. Clumsy is clumsy. You don't need another word fucking clumsy. Then call it clumsy. You become clumsy and you lose 2 AC and become sneak attackable. Okay, great. That use the word clumsy. Don't use flat-footed because that's something that, they kick you out of the army for because they can't cure. Like you don't become flat-footed because you tripped.
Are you
You become
flat-footed? Is that what this is?
no, I'm not. I have great feet actually. I have the best feet ever. Fantastic feet.
It's the
No, it just
best
it
feed. It's going to be great. Best feed of all time.
it just bugs me because flat feet doesn't like it irritates me because that's not what flat-footed is. Okay, you don't become uninspired by falling out of a water sphere. You don't become clumsy. You either are clumsy before you went into the sphere, or you came out of the sphere. Maybe the spell can make you clumsy. Okay, like hypnotic pattern.
I'm just going to let you finish your ranting about stupid shit.
That like hypnotic pattern kind of like makes you go all crazy and wobbly. That makes you clumsy. I could see that. Like now, do you have minus 2 to AC because you're not paying attention to what the fuck's going on? That's what advantage is for. That's what it does. But flat-footed doesn't mean that.
I'm so glad that you hate third
Mm,
edition and Pathfinder because they use wording you don't agree with.
It doesn't mean anything. It's the wrong term. Even your second definition of what flat-footed means still doesn't make like you have minus 2 AC and are sneak attackable. Like you can't become clumsy. Like you either are clumsy or you're not clumsy. That's a condition that stays with you when you wake up in the morning so you go to bed at night, or spell you become clumsy for an hour or some shit like that. So does the ball make you clumsy?
Hold on.
Then
So
how do you swing a sword effectively?
hold
Are
on.
you
So Aqueous Orb also gives them the grabbed condition. Like they're
that's
grabbed.
that's weird
They're not
because
grabbed. There's no fingers. There's no arms involved in this.
there's little water fingers in there like grabbing and
No,
holding
no,
you.
there are not.
Yeah.
Do you see how stupid your argument is? Like you
Well,
could
I
go
disagree.
through.
I
You
disagree
can
with
go
that too. Okay.
immobilized. They're not immobilized. They can still try to move. Like you can go through every single condition in all of these role playing games, and probably 90% of them are just incorrect.
I mean, D&D, they're pretty good.
Are they? All
Yeah.
right, hold on. Yep, let's look this up. Let me just pull up the list of conditions.
They don't have a water sphere that can grab you because grabbing is between two creatures. You read that off in the Pathfinder rule. Flat-footed. All babies have flat feet at birth and you
We
grow out of it.
yeah, we could definitely talk about grappled. That's one of the
Grappling is
worst.
useless in 5e. That's why no one uses the word.
It's one of the worst. One of the worst.
I like the 4e version of the game where you had a lot of spells and effects that shifted people around on the tabletop because it was more of a miniature game than 3.5 was. And I guess even more than what 5e is. I've always liked the miniature combat aspect of D&D. I
Sure,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
lead into that. So like
Pathfinder actually it helps having minis a lot in Pathfinder because
yeah.
the 5 foot movements matter a lot.
So like the hook horror, like when you fought it in 4e, it just was like, okay, you get pulled into it and it pushes that guy away and pulls this guy over here and then stabs that guy 9 times and then decides to beak attack you 4 times before throwing you through the air. And in 5e, it's like it pulls you closer to it and then beak attacks you.
Oh, I mean, do we really want to dive into the?
No, no, we
Yeah, okay,
don't.
we're gonna wait until
We
we do a video on that.
we're gonna be glad that 5e doesn't have flat footed because I wouldn't play the game if it did. You have flat feet.
All right.
Go see an orthopedic surgeon or something and get some arches.
Well, I'm glad I could ruin this podcast by bringing up Aqueous Orb and letting you go off on some stupid ass rant about flat-footedness.
When you told me about it earlier, it was just gonna be, oh, haha, a Katamari Damacy joke for 5 minutes. No,
Na-na,
flat-footed.
da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
So stupid.
Uh, so one other topic I wanted to talk about. So I had something happen this weekend when I was running Pathfinder. Uh,
Were they
do you?
flat-footed?
No, had nothing to do with any of that. Do you ever let your players sort of create their own storylines?
Yuck.
And so my players a long time ago in the same campaign cr- uh, came up with the idea, or actually, I think it was my player Drew came up with the idea that his character writes shitty romance novels. I know. And he's been writing it under a pseudonym for years. And we've always just sort of let this, it's been an inside joke. We just let it go. And then later on, one of the other players, our buddy Muffin, had decided that his character was a huge fucking fan of these novels. But for a long time, he didn't know that Drew's character was the one writing them. Uh, so forward, years along, and I decided. So Muffin's character had been collecting them, but he only knew there were 4 books. Where because my storyline were like 600 years later into the future, he only thought there were 4 books. Apparently, there are 23 books in the series, and he had just found that out fairly recently. So they go to deal with this one NPC, and they were staking out his place. So the rogue goes in, starts looking around. I'm having him look through the place, and he goes to the library of them, and he sees an entire set, all 23 book or 22 of the 23 books sitting on the shelf. And these are all in pristine condition. These are like the collector's edition versions of this that you could get. So he goes back, and for whatever reason, he ends up mentioning it to Drew's character, and Muffin's character was in the room, so he overheard it. And uh, the Rogue's character hated the fact that those books fucking existed because the first one was actually written about his mom, like that. It is about his buddy's mom. So whole story there. So anyway, Muffin's like, "Oh, I'll be back after a while, guys. I'm gonna go for a walk." So his fucking character leaves. I give him a few seconds to see if they even react, and none of them reacted to him saying that. So I'm like, "All right, Jacob, let's go out on the front porch and have a conversation." So we go outside, leave everybody else to their devices, and he goes to the house, stakes it out for a moment, sneaks into the back door, makes a decent stealth check, and he sneaks into where the library was at. And there's a fucking dude sitting in a chair looking away from him. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, he's just going to leave, come back later. I should have known better. No, he goes over there, chokes the dude fucking unconscious because that's actually a thing you could do in Pathfinder, and then
Mhm.
steals the entire set of books.
Okay.
Yeah, so he gets back to them later on, and he's flipping through the books, and he opens up to the first page of the first book, and it's signed to my biggest fan, Godfrey, which is his character. So he found his original books, his original first 4 books that were now picked up into this set. But it's just a stupid little storyline that my players had created on their own through no compulsion by the DM. So now I'm occasionally just throwing in stuff with that because it's fucking hilarious. And like that's how you build a storyline with your players. They love this kind of stuff.
Unfortunately, the best and most recent one I can think of was with my wife, where she had a cat named Silver. Okay,
Okay.
and I didn't want it. She wanted to be familiar, but I was like, no, it's not going to be familiar. Um, but you could just have a pet cat named Silver that follows you around Waterdeep, you know. And I let her decide, like, oh, he's here, he's there. And every once in a while, I'll be like, okay, is Silver with you? And she'd be like, no, he's chasing mice someplace. All right, is Silver with you? Yeah, he's right here on my lap.
Perfect. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was very cute. Well, eventually, it became an imp. Silver was kidnapped by an imp, and given to a crazy cat lady who was keeping Silver kidnapped in her in her townhome of cats.
That's a storyline right there.
And so pretty much Silver then became the imp that was spying on the party. So whenever they decided to do a plan and Silver was there, the people knew exactly what was going on
Yeah.
because the imp was the cat. And eventually, I had Silver show up with on the Castle Lanter's lap, and she was like, "Oh god damn it!" And she hated me. I had to sleep on the
Oh.
couch. And
So was it the
the
real?
next,
It was the real cat on their lap?
no, it was the imp Silver on their
Okay.
lap.
Did they ever go rescue the real one?
So the very next session, it was downtime between the campaigns, and Shelley basically went out to find her real cat. Um, lot of lot of ch- checks to kind of figure out like where the cat
Yep.
was.
Yep.
Check the crazy cat lady house, so she did, and then she found Silver. Well, she found two Silvers there, two
Uh-oh.
cats that looked identical to each other. There's always an identical version of a cat out there,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
true. Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna use animal handling to find out which one's my Silver. And she does, rolls real high, and her Silver shows up and goes meow. And she's like, okay, great. I pick up Silver and I leave with him. And I was like, okay, well, as you do, you hear a very sad meow behind. You turn around and look, and the other cat is there with these big kitty eyes looking at you. And she's like, okay, well, I pick him up too and I run away.
Yeah. You gotta take both the cats because crazy cat ladies.
So
What she
that's
should have
that's
done,
the
what she should
closest
have
I've.
done is that's really good though. That's on par. What she should have done is cast detect magic to figure out which one was the polymorphed one.
Well, I mean, they killed the imp cat variant.
Yeah, it doesn't mean there's not more.
There's not more. Well, I have a better one now. Right now, the and this is known to the players because it happened in the session, but it's not known to the PCs. Um, the Dragonborn player had to drop out of the campaign, so he kind of went out in a blaze of glory and tried to kill the succubus. The succubus killed him, and so now the succubus took over his spot. So she just shapeshifted into him, and she's now in the tavern, basically pretending to be the PC now.
Nice.
So I don't know what to do with that, but there's a succubus disguised in there.
I'm sure you'll figure something out.
Well, right now, whenever like I post like the title cards for each session, I have him down there at the bottom right hand side giving out really bad adventurer advice. Like, yeah, always trust the devils; they never go wrong. When you're talking about the novels, though, um, whenever someone talks about novels, for some reason, my mind always goes back to Stephen King. I don't know why.
All right.
And he wrote under a pen name for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was trying to see if I remember hearing that the pen name was like he wrote a bunch of romance novels under a pen name. So I tried
Yes.
to,
No. He definitely did.
yeah. Um, so then I did a quick search to try to see if I could find out what those were. Okay.
I don't remember the
And
names. I used to know them because I always look for them when I'm out trying to buy stuff to sell because some of them sell for a pretty penny.
so what was weird though is I didn't know that he had done I knew Stephen King wrote The Running Man, but I didn't know that he wrote The Running Man under his pen name Richard Bachman.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Okay. So I got that and I looked at the wiki page. I was just like, oh, that's funny. Ha ha ha. It's set in 2025. Okay.
Yeah. So 2 years from now.
So I want to read you the intro real quick. This is not really D&D related, but when it comes to world building and I guess art imitating life, let's see how close this is.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. Let's do it.
In 2025, the world's economy is in shambles, and America has become a tolerating dystopia.
We're close.
28-year-old Ben Richards, an impoverished resident of the fiction Co-op City, is unable to find work and has been blacklisted from his trade. His gravely ill daughter Kathy needs medicine, and his wife Sheila has been resorted to prostitution to bring in money for the family. It's too close.
It's
In,
definitely yeah. It's definitely close.
in desperation, Richard turns to the Games Network, a government-operated television station that runs violent game shows. After rigorous physical and mental testing, Richards is selected to appear on The Running Man, the network's most popular, lucrative, and dangerous program. He is interviewed by Dan Killian, the executive producer of the program, who describes the challenges he will face once the games begin. He also meets Fred Victor, the director of the show, and Bobby Thompson, the MC and host. The contestant is declared an enemy of the state and released with a 12-hour head start before hunters, an elite team of network employed hitmen, are sent out to kill him. The contestant earns $100 per hour that he stays alive and avoids capture, an additional 100 for each law enforcement officer or hunter he kills. Grand prize being 1 billion if he survives for 30 days. Viewers can receive cash rewards for informing the network of the runner's whereabouts. The runner, and this is the next best part, the runner is given $4,800 and a pocket video camera before he leaves the studio.
AKA a cell phone.
A GoPro.
Yeah.
He's given a GoPro and $5,000 and told to run. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna read any more, but like that's eerily close.
We're part way there.
Mr. Beast does that right now.
I don't think people would be up for that level of violence, though. Like the killing of them.
I think
People
if
aren't
Mr.
that
Beast
insensitive.
I think if Mr. Beast showed up on YouTube and said, "I'll give you $5,000 to kill that man right there," they'll do it.
Yeah, and then he would get arrested though, because that actually is illegal.
uh,
Now, if he did it off air, that's another thing. Probably wouldn't get found out, but yeah, that's a lot of that is unfortunately eerily similar. But you know,
yeah,
the more
he only wrote this back in 1982.
yeah, the more times change, the more they stay the same.
Oh
But
well, he can't get medical care. Oh no!
yeah, oh no, oh the economy's in shambles. Who would have seen that coming
Didn't
again?
didn't they invest in healing potions?
Yeah, obviously not. Shit, you just gave me a good PC character idea now. I'm gonna start selling NFTs in D&D.
Be careful you don't get sued.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, I think that's enough for this week.
All
I'm
right,
out of here.
no video game topics next week. We promise.
Probably. Bye, Craig.